John, I need 30 copies of this. Since you're so incompetent, at least handle the photocopying.
Yes? With those harsh words and the documents handed to me, I slowly headed towards the printing room.
Damn it, why did the company hire someone like him? When I think about how his salary comes from our hard-earned profits for the company, it really ticked me off.
Another employee's complaint rang out loud, enough to reach my ears as I took my leave. I pretended to not hear, entered the printing room and stood in front of the copy machine. I entered the major company through a mid-career recruitment. Most of the employees were fresh graduates from top-notch universities, so they probably expected that anyone from a mid-career recruitment would be exceptional.
John, what university did you graduate from?
When I answered that I only finished high school, the atmosphere instantly stiffened. I could feel the temperature of their gazes dropping. I could feel their contempt mixed with the question of why HS graduate was a mid-career recruit at such a major corporation. But their treatment of me wasn't just because of my educational background. On the first day, when I was supposed to launch a system that was hastily explained to me, how was I supposed to launch it again? When I asked the employee sitting next to me, they gave me a clearly annoyed look.
I explained it before. There's a manual. Read it and learn on your own.
A manual was tossed at me, and I apologized, saying I'm sorry, and accepted it. When I was asked by a colleague to create a record for a meeting,
John, have you finished the documents I asked for?
I'm sorry. I was told it was okay to submit them by tomorrow, so I had been prioritizing other work because I thought there was still time.
TCH, this is why HS grads are.
The colleague who clicked his tongue never assigned me any work again. After repeating such things, I was called an incompetent employee. Yes, I understood it was my fault too. I worked quietly, trying not to bother the other employees. Therefore, while I'm occasionally asked to do trivial tasks or photocopying that anyone can do, I'm never given any important work, my existence in the company being akin to thin air. April came, but nothing changed for me. No transfer, and of course, no promotion. I remained an incompetent employee. But a female employee transferred from the headquarters to our department and is going to become my direct superior.
My name is Anderson. Starting today, I'll be taking the position of head of accounting at this branch office. I'm aware there may be some differences in practices between our headquarters and this branch, but I'm eager to quickly acclimate to the environment and the work here. I'm counting on your support.
Ms. Anderson, with her black hair neatly tied back, an impeccably straight posture, and wearing a slim-fit suit, emanated the aura of a capable career woman. I had a bad feeling about this. Ms. Anderson immediately expressed her intention to understand each employee's role and responsibilities. So, a conference room was booked for us to have a one-on-one meeting. My suspicions were confirmed. I knocked on the door of the conference room and entered when invited. I sat opposite Ms. Anderson.
John, how long have you been with the company?
Well, I'm in my second year.
Oh, you're quite young.
When I explained that I was a mid-career recruit, she seemed to understand.
So, John, what are your main duties in your department?
When she asked me this question, I struggled to respond. She looked at me with a puzzled expression. I don't have any specific role, mainly assisting my seniors with miscellaneous tasks, organizing documents, and making copies. Ms. Anderson frowned at my answer.
We don't have the luxury to hire an employee who only handles odd jobs in these tough economic times. So I have a task for you. Could you follow me?
She led me to the department's storage room.
We have a problem because the headquarters can't access some of the old data from this branch. The files here predate the shared system. Did you input the tax-related information? Income tax, corporate tax, local taxes, sales tax, etc. into the system.
I understand.
And it would be helpful if you could also input the balance sheets and profit and loss statements.
After giving me the instructions, she quickly returned to the conference room. Back at the department with the files in hand, I saw a group of colleagues engaged in a conversation.
The new section chief, Ms. Anderson, seems like quite the go-getter, huh?
Yeah, she asked so many sharp questions about the job that my stomach started churning.
I was even told that taking this long for this job is inefficient.
As I walked by them, one of the employees spoke up.
Seems like our buddy, John, got assigned something too. But I'm sure the chief wouldn't take long to find out how incompetent he is.
The surrounding colleagues burst into laughter.
He's just a HS grad, right? He'll probably get ratted out to the headquarters and get fired.
Ignoring them as usual, I took my seat and got to work like a ghost. In the afternoon, while I was inputting into the system, Ms. Anderson approached me.
John, any problems with the system input?
Her sheer attractiveness made her presence even more intimidating. Oh, no, it's all good.
All right, send me a progress report via email when you can.
She said that and then moved on to another employee. The only times I've talked to the previous chief were when I first joined and at some office party. While reminiscing about those times and watching her leave, I got back to my work.
We will start our end-off day meeting from today.
As the end of work approached, Ms. Anderson announced this to all the employees. An end-off day meeting is where everyone gathers at the end of work to report on their progress and share any information or updates. Everyone reports on their work for the day, and if there's any urgent work that may not meet the deadline, available employees are asked to help out to improve efficiency.
All right, I'll start the report.
Ms. Anderson, who had suggested the idea, was the first one to go. Everyone, while confused by the novelty, reported on their work progress in turn.
Lastly, John, please.
When Ms. Anderson called my name, I shivered. I hated being the center of attention. I've always just existed as thin air up to this point. But she seemed determined to make me do this. Today, I extracted non-digitized data from files and entered it into the system, following a discussion with Section Chief Anderson.
How far did you get after that?
Ms. Anderson's brisk voice echoed through the room. Well, I have entered all the data related to taxes. As for the balance sheets and income statements.
All data? What do you mean by that?
She interrupted me. That I've entered 25 years worth of non-digitized data. I responded with a confused look, and her face paled, covering her mouth.
Why are you hiding your true abilities?
All of a sudden, all the employees looked at Ms. Anderson, stunned. The employee who always mocked me the most burst into laughter.
Ah, what are you talking about, Ms. Anderson? This guy is incompetent. He can't even remember the manual, his work is slow and inefficient, he's just a HS grad who's a waste of salary.
Ms. Anderson shot him a stern look.
That's because no one acknowledged his abilities, and he didn't try to use his talents either. I cross-checked the data inputted by the afternoon, and it was accurate without a single mistake. Being able to input data so quickly and accurately is quite remarkable.
Her words made me feel like a veil had been lifted from my eyes. No one had ever evaluated me like this before. Just who are you, really? I was so shocked that I forgot to use polite language with my boss, Ms. Anderson.
John, that's my question. Why are you pretending to be incompetent? Why are you putting up with being looked down on by other employees? Please tell me.
Her earnest gaze hit me right in the chest. Maybe she will understand me. With that hope in my heart, I prepared myself to confess the past I had been hiding. The truth is, I'm not a HS graduate. After graduating from a well-known, highly competitive university, I landed a job at a major corporation. Despite many of my superiors and seniors being graduates of prestigious universities, none were from my institution. I was called the genius newcomer, the elite rookie destined for success, and was given an almost unbelievable amount of work for a newcomer. But I've always been someone who perseveres, works steadily on my own, and gets through anything. I began looking for efficient ways to work and created my own system to quickly get through the tasks.
That's some Ivy League level.
Our level just can't compare to his.
As such, they flattered me, and eventually, even the work that my seniors and bosses were supposed to do were passed on to me. I was handling the workload of around 10 people by myself, but of course, my salary remained the same as the others. No, as a newcomer, I was even made to work for less than the others. One day, I fell ill and called in sick to the office.
What? You're taking a day off? We're screwed. Who's going to do the work if you're not here?
My boss rebuked me. After apologizing many times, I finally got permission to rest, but the company kept calling me without a break. Everyone had been dumping their work on me, so they didn't know how to proceed. Despite sending progress reports by email to avoid such a situation, nobody was reading them. As my fever from the cold rose and my consciousness faded, everything started to seem ridiculous. I wondered who I was working for. Instead of my bosses and seniors, it was me doing the work, and yet they were the ones collecting the salary. I was working multiple times harder than anyone else, not recognized, not rewarded, and my health was deteriorating. The next day, when I showed up at work, my colleagues all rushed over to me.
Thank God, John.
I thought they were concerned about my health, but they immediately asked me to do some work. I was thoroughly disgusted. I submitted my resignation, but
If you quit, John, what's going to happen to this company?
as expected, they rejected my resignation and tried to retain me. But if I stayed there, I would be used up until I was a rag, and not just my body, but my mind would also become sick. The law requires you to give a 2-week notice before resigning. I will prepare a handover document that anyone can read and fully understand, so you can't refuse to let me quit just because there's no one to hand over my tasks. I might have sounded cold, but I didn't have a shred of sympathy for my bosses or seniors. There's some blame on me too for just accepting their work as told, but their sin was far greater. I knew I had to find another job after resigning, but thinking that it might turn out like the last company, I had a hard time getting myself motivated. It would be more advantageous to work just like everyone else if I'm working the same hours and getting the same pay. Upon hearing my murmur, my uncle laughed.
Why don't you come work for me then?
That's the company I'm working for now. I hid my academic background, claiming I only graduated high school, and got approval from my uncle, who is the president, to only do the work assigned in the accounting department. I was allowed to work there as a mid-career recruit. Only the president, the executive director, and the head of the human resources department know about this. I learned a lesson at my previous company. If getting praised and assigned work for being an Ivy League graduate doesn't get me any credit or raise my pay, it's just stupid. So I decided to blend in at this company. Ms. Anderson stared at me intently.
So, how has it been working here for the past year? Are you enjoying it every day? Do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel a sense of worth in this job?
I had nothing to say. Certainly, it's easy to just do as I'm told. Nobody expects anything from me, and I'm not pressured with more work. But back then, I had more passion for work, a greater sense of fulfillment.
All right, that's enough.
A familiar voice said. When I looked up, there was the CEO, standing there.
Anderson here is a highly respected member of our team, serving as the Director of Human Resources at our headquarters.
He continued. I had taken on excessive workload at my previous company due to my competence, which often led to my superiors and seniors dumping their work on me. When my uncle, the CEO, heard about this, he was eager to help me out, but was also uncertain if it was the right thing to do. However, he decided to let me work the way I wanted for the first year, choosing not to intervene but instead keep an eye on me. While he observed me during this period, he consulted with Ms. Anderson about the best course of action.
Boss, could I be assigned as a manager in the branch where your nephew works? I want to understand him better and see what kind of person he is.
That's what she proposed.
John, the task I assign to you usually takes at least 3 days to complete. But you did it in a day, and not only that, you even started working on the balance sheet as well as the profit and loss statement. You're an exceptional employee, and this should be recognized.
Ms. Anderson's words caused my heart to swell with pride. That's right. It's not that I didn't want to work or just wanted to do simple chores. I wanted to be recognized for the work I was doing.
This applies not just to you, John, but to all employees. Today, Ms. Anderson evaluated every single staff member. Those who are diligent in their work will be recognized, and those who aren't should be prepared for the appropriate action,
said the CEO, his words causing tension to ripple across the faces of the employees. After that, under Ms. Anderson's supervision, the branch underwent a transformation. Firstly, we improved the employee evaluation system to ensure that each person received a fair appraisal. Next, we promoted lesser-known incentive programs for professional certifications and award systems to increase employee motivation. The most crucial aspect was the interpersonal relationships. We fostered better communication within the office to create a more open work environment. As a result, the employees who were giving me a hard time ended up being transferred to a remote location, as they were also found to be harassing other junior staff members. There were also others who received a downgrade for their performance ratings. A new supervisor was assigned to the accounting department. He closely monitored each employee and provided positive feedback and support, making the overall atmosphere brighter, in my opinion. Currently, I'm working as an employee in the accounting department, responsibly handling my assigned duties and receiving fair evaluations for my work. Work isn't just about earning money or sustaining a livelihood. You find the purpose of your work, feel satisfied, and your work life becomes fulfilling when your colleagues and superiors recognize your efforts. I'll never forget my gratitude to my uncle, the CEO, and Ms. Anderson, who taught me this valuable lesson, and I'm determined to continue working hard.
Huh, Max? Aren't you Max Harrow?
In a corner of a large lounge adorned with a luxurious chandelier. Visiting a famous hotel for a rendezvous with a friend, I was stopped by a voice familiar from the recesses of my memory. Catherine, it's been a while.
No way, it's really you, Max. I can't believe it. Why would someone like you be here? You wouldn't have any business at such a fancy hotel.
Her tone seemed as sarcastically high-pitched as ever. Even though I wanted today to be a joyful day, she sure knows how to dampen the mood. I'm meeting up with a friend. What's wrong with that?
Okay. Well, I'm about to meet my fiancé. He said he wants to introduce me to one of his mentors or something. Maybe he just wants to show off how beautiful I am.
Really? That's nice.
So you hear I have a fiancé, and you can't even offer a single congrats. This is why guys like you who bail out just before med school admissions are just no good.
People around started to look our way at Catherine's loud voice. I wanted to retort with, women without a hint of common sense like you are the real problem, but I kept my mouth shut. Yes, it's true I opted out of medical school admissions. Maybe I was always looking for an easy way out. That was back when I, Max Harrow, was in senior year of high school. That's over a decade ago. Catherine and I used to hang out in the same group, but we only hung out a few times a month. One of my friends started dating one of her friends, so we'd all go to the shopping mall or game arcades, the usual teenage stuff. Catherine and her friends were students at a nearby girls' school, and we were from an all-boys school. That girls' school apparently had a reputation for having many cute girls. I wasn't particularly interested. We just had a simple, wholesome friendship, but everything changed when we started discussing our future plans. The moment she found out I was aiming to become a doctor, she became overly interested in my school choices and began to shower me with praises like, "Aiming to be a doctor. Max, you're such a kind person." She would say with a bright smile, "Becoming a doctor is so admirable. Saving lives is amazing." I got really drawn to Catherine, who said these things. So when she confessed her feelings, I was really happy. I believed she was a genuinely kind and good person. At least until that time. In mid-January, right before the college entrance exams. On a Friday afternoon, after visiting a large bookstore a little far from home, I was involved in a bus accident on my way back. Just as we were about to cross a bridge, a truck from behind collided with us. The bus broke through the old railings, dropping several feet to the ground below. Fortunately, no one lost their lives in the accident. However, I suffered a broken right arm, cracked ribs, and internal bleeding in my skull, rendering me unconscious for 2 days. My memories from the accident are hazy until I woke up in the hospital bed. It was the first time I had seen my usually cheerful mother look so drained and devastated. That evening, when my consciousness returned, my teacher and the school principal came to visit. A nurse, moved by the sight of my crying teacher, let them stay for a short while. The principal kept his usual calm demeanor. They promised to keep the accident a secret. My classmates had their own exams and job interviews coming up. Some even had their exams the following week. I didn't want to upset anyone because of my situation. The teachers and my parents understood and decided to tell everyone that I was away visiting some distant relatives. Since we were about to go on self-study sessions, I wouldn't see my classmates anyway. Everyone would soon forget my absence. Before leaving, they encouraged me, "First, get better. We can think about what's next after that." That was the first time I realized I wouldn't be taking the college entrance exams. A week after that, I was tormented by fever, excruciating pain, or frustration from not being able to move my right hand. I couldn't eat and lost 11 pounds before I knew it. During the day, it was better because my mom and dad were there, but at night, being alone in my private room was rough. I told Catherine, like I did to everyone else, I'm out of town helping some relatives. We did exchange messages a few times, and she was always really worried about my college applications. So I felt bad and ended up texting her. I decided to withdraw my college application. We hadn't been seeing each other much as college application season approached, and Catherine, who never nagged me for long calls or said she wanted to meet. But she called me immediately. Although it was late at night in my private room, I hesitated to answer. When I texted her that I couldn't talk, she started texting me like crazy.
What do you mean you're withdrawing? Didn't you say you were sure to pass the pre-exams? Was that a lie? Were you just showing off wanting to go to medical school? That's low. You're running away because you're ashamed to fail. Coward. I was with you because you said you'd become a doctor. Now you're worthless. Eck, what a waste of my time. I don't need a guy like that. We're breaking up.
Her barrage of belittling messages kept coming in. I was so disappointed, wondering if this was her true nature. I guess Catherine was just with me because she thought I would get into medical school and become a doctor. I deleted the message about the accident I was trying to convey with my unfamiliar left hand and just texted, "I get it," before tossing my phone away. Now I'm 32. Catherine, standing in front of me, should be the same age, but she looks quite flashy, trying to look younger. She's wearing a multi-layered skirt like some pop star, with a bright pink jacket. It's not that it doesn't suit her, it just doesn't feel right.
You're still so spaced out. Well, whatever. Let me introduce you to my fiancé. He's amazing, a doctor, and he's 5 years younger than us. Pumpkin, over here.
She waves wildly and shouts towards someone behind me. Pumpkin, really? It's kind of embarrassing to call him that in public. And with her causing such a scene, the hotel staff even had to intervene. Her fiancé rushes over to her side, cringing to the hotel staff. But Catherine pays no attention and snobbishly says, "What? I'm going to be a doctor's wife." Thanks to her fiancé's repeated cringing, the staff eventually left. But Catherine's loud voice echoed again, even though her fiancé is still feeling uneasy.
Before meeting your mentor, let me introduce you to this underachiever, a guy I briefly dated. He ran away right before his med school entrance exam. His name is Max Harrow. This is Keith, a wonderful doctor and my fiancé.
Wait, Catherine, why,
Keith, introduce, oh. Keith and I exchanged glances. And then we understood.
I see, Catherine, are you referring to that time?
You said you wanted to introduce me to your girlfriend, but now you're engaged.
Well, there's a reason.
We both sighed in unison. Catherine looked between us, puzzled.
What's going on? Do you two know each other? But how can my doctor fiancé, Keith, know someone like Max? Right, Keith? You better explain.
Well, about that, let's just say our engagement is off.
What? Why so suddenly?
The mentor I wanted to introduce to you is him, Max. Thanks to Max, I am now a doctor. He's my mentor, my friend, and the one who saved my life.
What do you mean, mentor? Aren't mentors usually school teachers? And what's this about breaking off our engagement? I won't allow it.
Seeing Catherine's attitude, Keith sighed again. Some hotel staff were watching from a distance.
You and your mom were the ones excited about the engagement, but I thought I'd consider it, which is why I wanted you to meet Max today. I thought Max, whom I trust, would give me an honest opinion.
Opinion on what?
You'd probably talk about marriage all day today. I wanted to know what Max would think of you.
Catherine turned her gaze sharply towards me, perhaps hoping I'd say something in her favor. But my mind was already made up. Well, even if we forget the past, just seeing the attitude earlier, I can confidently say, you shouldn't marry someone like that.
Right, I feel the same. That's why I've called off our engagement. Or rather, please, let's break up.
What the hell, Max? You must be jealous that Keith gets to marry such a wonderful woman like me. How deceitful of you, trying to steal our happiness.
No, women who act all high and mighty saying, "I'll become a doctor's wife," are generally off-putting. Catherine was lost for words. Perhaps she felt assured of marriage since she was introduced by a respected mentor, which made her true nature come out. Keith, who was beside her, also said with his head down, "I thought it was strange that she was rushing our marriage, but I didn't expect her to have such a terrible personality."
Why do you even listen to the opinion of such a dumb guy? It's a matter between you and me.
Keith slowly began to explain to Catherine, who was furious.
Do you remember I told you that I had an accident in middle school? I was paralyzed out of fear, felt pain everywhere, and was shivering uncontrollably.
Oh, the bus accident? What about it?
I mentioned earlier that he's the one who saved my life. Max was the one who held my hand and kept encouraging me during that time. Despite having broken his bones, he did his best to calm me down when I was about to panic.
Wait, does that mean Max was also on that bus?
Keith noted and began to recount that time. The time until they heard the ambulance's sirens felt like an eternity. But my constant reassurance saved him. When I was moved from a private room to a general ward and was placed next to Keith, it made him happy. We started studying together, and even after being discharged, I tutored him and we became good friends. Keith was inspired by me and studied hard to get into the same medical school.
That's why I won't marry you, and I don't want to continue our relationship without even considering Max's opinion.
Hold on, the same medical school.
Yes, Max graduated from the same medical school and is now a doctor. That's why I can't understand the things you've been saying, calling him incompetent. He couldn't take the entrance exam only because of the accident.
Oh, I didn't mention that part. Oh, right. Back then, I was depressed, but meeting Keith encouraged me to try again. I decided to retake the exam the next year while undergoing physical therapy. Thanks to that, I was able to get into a top-tier university.
Wait, Max, why didn't you tell me?
I'm sorry for not mentioning the accident, but...
It doesn't matter. If you both graduated from the same school, does that mean Harvard Medical? Why didn't you contact me then? If I knew, I would have dated you again. Or even now, which hospital are you working at? How much do you earn? You're older than Keith, so you must have a good salary, right?
Keith and I just looked at each other. There's no helping this woman. Keith then canceled the dinner reservation at the fancy restaurant on the 30th floor of the hotel we were planning to go to. The hotel staff kindly agreed without charging any cancellation fees since there were other customers waiting for a table. Catherine was still causing a scene and accidentally threw her purse, which hit a large vase in the lounge. As the security staff restrained her, another staff member suggested we leave. It's a really nice hotel. We'll definitely use it again if there's an occasion.
Hot, tasty. I'm sorry, Max. I promised to treat you to a fancy hotel dinner, but it turned out like this. Here's a beer too.
What are you talking about? This is still a treat. Cheers.
Cheers.
After walking a while from the hotel, Keith and I sat on a park bench munching on convenience store sandwiches. While we thought about grabbing a drink somewhere, the lights of the convenience store attracted us. Sandwiches, beer, soup. We have everything. If this isn't a treat, then what is? I remember when we were hospitalized, we would sneak down to the cafeteria and get scolded.
Exactly. I was in a wheelchair because of my broken leg and you'd push me around.
And you'd open the bag of chips for me. We enjoyed reminiscing about the old days. Perhaps we should thank Catherine just a bit for giving us this moment. But it's such a coincidence, isn't it, that Catherine and you were engaged?
That's because Catherine was the one pushing it forward. I never proposed, and we've been dating for less than a month. If I had known she was your ex who dumped you, I would have never dated her.
Well, that makes sense. Both of us had talked about Catherine after we grew up. If only I had given him her full name, I think now. Then we chatted about our jobs and Keith's soccer team. Time flew by, but we never ran out of things to talk about. Sipping on our post-dinner canned coffee, Keith suddenly murmured,
You know, I still dream about that time. It's dark and cold, feels like I'm falling endlessly. But you always reach out and pull me back. I want to be someone who can support their patients like that. I owe becoming a doctor to you for always being there and helping me study. That's how I always feel.
Keith may say that, but in that moment, it was really him who pulled me back to reality. After failing my college entrance exam, my dominant arm not working as I wanted, and being dumped by my girlfriend, I think that was the first time I truly felt despair. There were nights I wished I'd never woken up. But when they moved me to the bed next to Keith, he, with his leg in a cast, lit up with joy.
It's my big bro from that time. Thank you. Thank you for always being there for me.
Though many tried, no one could come to my bedside, but apparently Keith had been worried about me ever since I passed out when the ambulance arrived. Keith, with his friendly nature, was someone even a shy guy like me could get along with immediately.
I might not be able to play soccer anymore. I dreamt of being a soccer player.
But in the next moment, tears expected, Keith laughed, but that's okay. Becoming a doctor is also my dream. Do you have 2 dreams or what? I teased. Keith continued.
Who said we can only have one dream? After I become a doctor, if my leg gets better, I can still aim to be a soccer player. Becoming a doctor might be tough, but I'll take the test as many times as needed. By the way, Max, are you smart?
Keith grinned, showing me what looked like school handouts. From then on, we talked about how I also wanted to go to med school, and he was super impressed. It made me resolute about retaking the entrance exam following year. My frustrations faded over time, and watching Keith eat with such an appetite brought back my own hunger. Studying together at Keith's insistence became a joy. If I'm here today, it's because of you.
Did you say something, Max?
No, just thinking, maybe we should try out some speed dating or something next.
Well, I mean, it would be unfair if only I got all the attention, right?
He grinned mischievously. That smile hasn't changed since those days. Keith will always be my endearing yet slightly cheeky best friend.
Well then, I'm off. Johnson, take care of the place while I'm gone.
Yes, sir.
Dressed in a suit, a young man named Johnson replies as he walks behind me. Behind Johnson, several other men followed in line. Man, every single time, I keep telling them I don't need everyone to see me off. Growing tired of this dreary scene, I walked down the long corridor, heading to the front door. Upon reaching the entrance and turning towards the group, everyone bowed their heads. And they all said in unison, "Take care." Jer, I responded. Just as I was about to leave, Johnson seemed to remember something and stopped me.
Oh, right, about the car.
What about the car?
It's in for maintenance today, so we have a loaner car.
Okay, so when will my car be back?
I've urgently requested our regular car dealer, so it should be back by this evening.
Got it, counting on you. After finishing the conversation with Johnson, I headed to the parking lot where his chauffeur, David, was waiting by the passenger side of a car. Hey, David, is that the loaner car?
Yes, it's a compact car, but...
There stood a cute, boxy compact car with a bunny emblem, painted in pink. I couldn't help but chuckle at its cuteness. Wow, quite the cute car there.
I'm sorry, it's a busy time for maintenance, so there weren't any other loaner cars available.
It's all right. I don't mind these types of cars. Modern compact cars have a good ride quality. Plus, David, I can trust any car you drive. I'm counting on you today.
Thank you for your kind words. Please step in.
David opened the passenger side door for me. Once I settled in, David quietly closed the door and took the driver's seat.
Are we heading to that usual spot today?
Yes, that place. I looked at a postcard in my hand. Darn it, that idiot. I was wondering where he went after quitting my place, and now he's up to this. The postcard read, "It's been a while. I heard you recently celebrated your 60th birthday. I hope you're in good health. I, Kevin Miller, have opened a cafe. The name is Camphor Tree. I'd like to invite you over as a token of my gratitude and to celebrate your birthday. I hope to see you there."
Good to hear Mr. Miller is doing well. But a cafe, huh?
David chuckled as he started the engine. The irony was clear to both of them. Miller stands tall, probably exceeding 6 feet, with a robust physique, truly resembling the stature of an oak tree. Yet, His face is also quite intimidating. I can't imagine him running a cafe with that face.
You're right, but his dishes were top-notch.
Recalling the dishes Kevin Miller used to make, my mouth watered. Right, I remember. I'm looking forward to it. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
After about a 30-minute drive with David at the wheel, they reached the cafe. It was a quaint, log cabin-style single-story building, painted entirely in blue, looking nothing like something Mr. Miller would run. Well, it doesn't seem like Mr. Miller's style at all. As he admired the cafe through the front windshield, David opened the passenger door for him. After stepping out, David said, "I'll wait here for you, sir." Knowing how close David and Mr. Miller were, almost like brothers, I suggested, "No, you should come in too. It's been a while since you saw your big brother, hasn't it?" Upon hearing this, David's eyes lit up. "Really? May I?" With a chuckle, I nodded at David. "Yep, show your face to Miller."
Thank you.
And so, David, who usually waits in the car, decided to join me in the cafe today. When David opened the door of the cafe, the sound of a bell could be heard. Hearing the sound, a deep voice exclaimed, "Welcome to my cafe," a voice you wouldn't expect from such a cute-looking cafe. Hearing that voice, I couldn't help but laugh. "You seem well, Miller." Saying that and entering, a tall, imposing man wearing a cream-colored linen apron stood by the counter. The man looked surprised to see both David and me. But in an instant, he smiled brightly.
"I've been waiting for you."
David and I took our seats as directed by Miller.
"I'm so glad you came."
"You invite us with such a letter and then are surprised, in a cafe. That's unexpected for someone with your looks." Teasing him like that, Miller smiled, not minding it at all. He probably really wanted to run a cafe.
"Yeah, fair point. I mean, look at this face. But cooking is my only talent, and I love it. I wanted more people to taste my homemade dishes."
"So, a cafe, nice. We all loved the food you made. We cried when you left, thinking we'd have to eat Johnson's terrible cooking."
"Oh, Johnson, huh? His cooking was dreadful."
"So, can we taste your homemade dishes in this cafe?" Without prolonging the chit-chat, I asked Miller if I could enjoy the homemade dishes I'd been looking forward to. Perhaps sensing my eagerness, Miller handed over the menu with a grin.
"Yes, please choose anything. Here's the menu."
I examined the menu closely. Everything looked so tempting. As I was deciding, David eagerly raised his hand to order first.
Miller, may I order first?
"Sure. What'll it be?"
I'd like a strawberry sundae.
David's timid request made Miller frown.
"Hey, how many times have I told you? Desserts aren't meals. If you want dessert, eat your dinner first. No sundae for you."
But I'm here as a customer today.
"You're a customer, but you're also my younger brother. It's my duty to care for you. So, you're having an omelet."
An omelet? Awesome. Oh, no green peas, please.
"Ours has green peas. No exclusions. Eat up."
Come on.
Seeing the banter between the two, I smiled fondly. It reminded me of their old playful exchanges. "Then, I'll have the beef stew. I've been craving that tender meat simmered for hours."
"Sure thing. Leave it to me."
I ordered the beef stew. David was more or less forced to order an omelet, and Miller went to the kitchen to prepare them. It was then. A loud thud was heard from outside. What was that?
Sounded from outside.
Looking out the window, we saw an unbelievable sight. A black sedan with a Mercedes-Benz emblem had crashed into our compact car. "Hey, that car," I murmured in a low voice, clearly angered. David immediately stood up.
I'll check it out.
Just as he was about to leave the cafe, two men with tattoos peeking from their shirts entered.
Hey, Our car got dinged by that cute pink compact car. Who's driving that thing?
We're mobsters, you know. You realize what'll happen if you don't step up now, right?
So they are low-level mobsters. David stands up to the thig's intimidation.
That car belongs to Mr. Miller. You guys were the ones who hit the parked car, weren't you?
As the three men glare at each other, the other patrons start murmuring. Seeing this, I stand up and head over to David. Stop it, David.
But
Think about where we are, fool. Being told that by the old man, David looked startled. Scanning the inside of the store, David, while glaring at the thuggish mobster, retreated. It seems he cools things off a bit.
Old man, are you the owner of that car? Quite a cute ride you've got there.
Because of that cute car, our luxury vehicle's bumper got scratched and dented. How are you gonna make this right, huh?
Facing the loud-mouthed low-level mobsters, I, trying to remain calm, offer a serene smile and bow my head. I apologize. It won't happen again. Will you forgive this? Bowing deeply in apology, the two thugs exchange glances. And then, with a smug smirk, one of them seemed to come up with an idea. Hey, old man, he demanded.
Pay us $30,000 for damages and inconvenience.
Then we'll let you go.
Being confronted and demanded money after someone else hit their parked car. Such audacity. David, standing behind me, looks like he's about to explode at the wannabe gangster's demand, but I raise a hand to stop him. Then, I humble myself before the wannabe gangsters. Then, at my place.
At your place. You've got money there.
Whoa, rich guy. Well, we won't say no to that.
And so, without waiting for their orders, David and I reluctantly leave the cafe. Checking the car, we found that thankfully only the bumper is dented. With David driving, they decide to head back to my place. Upon arrival, they let the thugs park their luxury car and lead them to the front of the house. There, lined from the entrance to the gate, are tough-looking men in suits. At the entrance, Johnson stands ready. Upon seeing me, Johnson shouts,
Boss, welcome back.
Following Johnson's lead, all the lined-up men join in. Welcome back. Looking at the bewildered thugs, I say, this is my home. Now, follow me. The two thugs, looking paler by the second, simply mutter, what? You wanted money, right? Come on.
I mean,
We might have made a mistake.
Before they can move, another gang member hurriedly reports to Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, the stolen boss's car has been returned.
It's back. I thought it came back from the maintenance, but to think it was stolen by some random thugs. That's on me, a mistake I'll regret forever. Is the boss's car all right?
Well, there's a scratch and a dent on the bumper.
What? Who did this? Huh.
Seeing the panic of the other members, the two thugs shrunk back in fear. I turned to the two and said, now, let's hear your story. With my gentle smile. In the end, those two wannabe thugs are just low-level guys in my organization. In other words, they are just thugs trying to flaunt the name of my gang. The luxury car those two thugs were driving, that was my car. So when I saw that car at the diner, I was like, hey, that's my car, and I was visibly pissed. How did my car end up in the hands of such small fries? Here's what happened. The car dealer I had asked to maintain my car had brought it over and left the keys in while parking it to report to Johnson. Those two thugs, seized by some bad impulse, decided to take the car. By the time the car dealer guy came back with Johnson, the car was gone. Those two thugs, after getting the luxury car and driving it poorly, just happened to hit the car David and I were in when they decided to stop by a diner. It's something, huh? All these coincidences. Maybe it's because I'm the boss here. Right in front of me, those two thugs were kneeling, shaking with fear. Looking at those two things, I had a smirk on my face, but my eyes were cold as ice. Now, how are you gonna make up for stealing my car and then damaging it? Just as I was pondering that,
Let me handle the compensation.
a deep voice echoed. It was Miller. Miller appeared, carrying a dish on a large tray. Miller, what about your restaurant?
I left it to my staff. But boss, you can't just order food and leave. It got cold because of that.
Saying that, Miller placed beef stew in front of me. You brought it all the way here.
Yes, it was hectic. I bring the foods and neither you nor David are there, and there was a commotion in the diner.
Sorry about that, I said, starting to eat the beef stew. Indeed, as delicious as ever. I couldn't stop eating and quickly finished the beef stew. Now feeling full, I finally asked Miller about the compensation. So Miller, how do you plan on making them pay? It's a matter concerning my gang, even if it's you. I wouldn't allow it. But Miller nodded his head.
No, this is also a matter concerning my restaurant. The accident happened in my restaurant's parking lot, causing inconvenience to other customers and a drop in profit. Therefore, they should be dealt with accordingly here.
I see, Miller does have a point. The bigger victim here seems to be Miller, and it might be fair to let him handle it. However, my anger at my car being damaged wasn't something that could be easily suppressed, so I decided to ask Miller anyway. How do you plan on making them pay? Miller looked me straight in the eyes and replied,
I'll make them work for me. I'll take full responsibility and train them hard.
At his resolute answer, I burst out laughing. It's a great idea. Everyone knows Miller's the hardest taskmaster around, I said, laughing, while David looked quite dismayed.
Man, I kind of feel sorry for those guys now.
Seeing our reactions, the faces of those two thugs turned even paler. All right, I'll leave their punishment to you, Miller.
Thank you. Now, I'll take these two with me. Excuse us.
Saying that, Miller grabbed the two thugs by the scruff of their necks and started to leave the room. Watching Miller, I was reminded of my younger days when I used to grab a young, defiant Miller the same way. Back then, Miller was always rebelling, and I was always angry at him for it. Remembering that, I chuckled. Then, I called out, Miller, stopping him at his tracks.
Yes, sir.
You left the gang, seemed to be having a tough time. I wondered if you'd changed. As the leader, no, as an older brother figure, I had my concerns, but I'm relieved to see you're still the same. Looking at you now, I can finally let you go with peace of mind. Stay strong out there. With those words, Miller replied with a big grin, got it. Just like he would in his younger days. Then, he left the house with two ruffians in tow. 2 months had passed since. Driving a freshly repaired car, David and I were headed somewhere. Upon reaching their destination, David and I stepped out of the car together and went into a store. The store's name was Camphor Tree. Yes, it was Miller's Cafe. As the booming voice of Miller echoed welcome, it was followed by how can I help you, from two younger men. Hey, Miller, working hard.
Yes, got my hands full. Watch and see. They're working hard, almost like they're paying off the car's repair costs.
That's good to hear. Watching the two hustling about, I guess they must be under strict supervision. Observing the relationship between Miller and the two, I felt the pang of losing such valuable members. I was planning to recommend Miller as the next boss. Yet, seeing Miller's cheerful service, I reconsidered. No, this is for the best. Sitting down, I placed his order with Miller. Braised pork belly. With a wry smile, Miller responded instantly. We don't have that. Can you add it to the menu?
Come on. That's the third time you've asked. This ain't your personal cafe.
Can you make it happen?
Oh, all right. How about next month?
Miller, seeming exasperated but still yielding to Jack's requests, hadn't changed a bit. To that, I responded with a mischievous smile. Deal. No matter the circumstances, no matter the roles, the bond between Miller and I remains unbroken.
The sky was overcast with heavy clouds. It was an afternoon where the air pressure made my head feel heavy, and I let out an unconscious sigh. I decided to take a break, holding the chocolate and coffee I had bought from the store, and sat on the bench in the backyard. There, I noticed a group that seemed to be medical interns. To my surprise, they were littering in the bushes and were about to walk away. "Hey, you guys." As they turned to look at me, they smirked.
What's with that outfit? A nurse? You need something?
"Look here. This is a hospital, you know. Do you think it's okay to throw trash?"
That's hilarious. What's this lowly older woman saying? We came here from a prestigious medical school, you know?
They may aspire to be doctors, but their attitudes are rotten.
We have bright futures ahead of us, ma'am. Maybe you can be of help by picking up our trash.
That's funny. If the strict hospital director saw this, it'd be bad.
It's all good. We only care about the big shots. Especially not an old woman in a nurse's outfit.
I couldn't stand looking at the littered bushes, so I picked up the trash right in front of them. I decided to let them in on a little secret. My name is Catherine Smith. I'm 43 years old and have reasons to be helping out as a nurse. Getting married? Probably. Not in the cards for me. I've always been told I'm strong-willed. The boys I liked were afraid of me, and at singles party, I was often told I seemed too dominant. In other words, I'm like a lone wolf, strong and not the type to attract men. Especially since, given my work environment, I despise weak men. They're definitely not my type.
You like younger guys, don't you, Catherine?
My high school classmate, and currently working in the same place as a nurse, Mrs. Jennifer offered her a cup of coffee. It was her fault that I ended up working as a nurse. Well, she was the reason I started. What are you talking about?
About that singles party thing.
What? I'm done with those. It's always a swing and a miss. Plus, I'm not interested in younger guys. If they're even my age and too soft, it's a no-go.
Maybe it's because they are the same age, right? Maybe you'd be more forgiving with someone younger.
Nope. A big no from me. I was growing tired of her comments when there was a noise at the door.
Oops.
That noisy voice. I knew who it was without even looking. It was Jason, a certified natural disaster. He's also a nurse and 3 years younger. He's always making a ruckus. What happened now? Despite saying that, part of me was always excited about whatever commotion he was causing. So I left my barely touched coffee and opened the door to the break room. I saw a torn paper bag and scattered pastries.
Oh no, Miss Smith, how was your day?
Jennifer peeked over my shoulder.
You've outdone yourself this time.
I got these treats from various people, but it seems like the bag got caught on the doorknob.
Thankfully, the pastries were individually wrapped, and the box of sweets was still intact. Why is there always some kind of incident with you? Just yesterday, he knocked over a pile of files with his elbow, and the day before, he made a fuss over missing glasses, which turned out to be in his shirt pocket.
I'm sorry. I always try to be careful.
He's definitely not boyfriend material. But his quirky personality made him popular, especially among older women. They doted on him. Whenever he'd go out on his rounds, he'd come back with both hands full of treats. Why don't you just decline if you don't need it?
Well, you can't say that. There are people looking forward to giving it. Receiving is part of the job.
He showed a sharp look from behind his glasses. His eyebrows were thick, but his eyes were light brown. He gave off an unreliable vibe, but there was a hint of inner strength. Speaking of which, it seems we'll have interns starting tomorrow.
Oh, really? Is it that time already? I'm not thrilled. I'm pretty shy.
Jason picked up all the snacks and slouched in his chair. Then he grabbed a large cookie and ate it in one bite.
The interns from the year before last were the worst. They asked for my email address right away and tried to get too close.
That's probably because the girls liked you, Jason. You are quite handsome.
It's not all about looks. That's rude.
Jason, taking one snack after another, was dreading the next day. There were 4 interns in total. All of them were guys this year. John, Robert, Mike, and Charles. Nursing assistants don't usually interact much with interns, but they do have business discussions frequently.
It's a bit of a busy time to have you join us.
After the interns came to introduce themselves, Jennifer, Jason, and I tried to match their faces and names by writing their characteristics on a whiteboard. It would be easier to remember if we had their photos, Jason said, scratching his head. Sure would help to match names and faces beforehand. We will have to interact with them to some extent, after all.
So, Catherine, were you okay?
With what?
Introducing yourself.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just here to help. I'll be leaving this place soon anyway. Jason frowned and looked sad.
That's mean.
It's okay, it's okay. I'm going for a little walk. It had been a hectic day from the morning. I felt like I needed some alone time, so I went to the store and bought some chocolate and coffee. On days like this, I like to have lots of sweets. If not, fatigue would pile up, leading to small mistakes. When I arrived at the backyard, there were already some people in there. The new interns from earlier. They were laughing loudly and boisterously.
This hospital is kind of lame. At my old place, we had VIP rooms, but it seems this hospital doesn't.
We should head back. It's almost time.
One of them threw candy wrappers into the bushes. Hey, that's not cool, you know. Without thinking, I stepped up to confront them.
Who are you?
What was his name again? Although I tried to remember, the name didn't come to mind. Even though they had just introduced themselves and wrote their characteristics on a whiteboard. It seemed he didn't remember me either. It's not surprising since the hospital has many staff members, but it felt lonely that neither made a lasting impression. My name is. I almost revealed my true identity, but held back. I'm a nursing assistant here.
What's the big deal, John? She's just a nursing assistant.
The tallest young man with simple features looked down on me.
Oh yeah, those clothes. Hey, listen up. We're the elite future of medicine. Watch your mouth or you'll regret it.
See you later, old lady. Pick up that trash over there, will ya?
They erupted in unpleasant laughter.
We were told to watch out for the strict dean like a demon before coming to this hospital, but she seems to be absent. This hospital's nothing special.
Yeah, let's get going.
As they began to walk away quickly, I threw a picked-up soda can at one of their feet.
Hey, how are you gonna make it right if my suit gets dirty? Cut it out.
You think a nursing assistant can act this defiant? I'll report you to the dean.
They shot me contemptuous glances. It's horrifying to think that such cold-hearted individuals are entering a profession where they'll be entrusted with lives. What have these kids learned from their parents or schools? That university has many wealthy students, but these interns are by far the most sheltered I've seen.
Miss Smith! Miss Smith!
While I was staring down the interns, Mr. Barnes came running, out of breath. He had some documents in his hand.
There you are. You weren't in the nursing office, so I was looking all over for you. Please sign these. They're due today.
Perfect timing, Mr. Barnes. I have something to discuss.
The one earlier referred to as Mike with curly hair approached Mr. Barnes and pointed at me.
This old nursing assistant is quite rude. Please reprimand her.
You.
Mr. Barnes sternly lowered Mike's pointing finger and shouted,
The rude one is you, calling her an old nursing assistant.
The dean's absent, so she's getting cocky.
You see, kid,
Mr. Barnes adjusted his glasses with an exasperated look.
that dean, she's standing right in front of you.
What?
One of the interns spat out and glared. Enough of this crap. So I silently took off my nursing assistant badge and showed my actual badge.
This is Miss Catherine Smith, the genuine dean.
Catherine Smith. The interns repeated my name in a deflated tone. Some were flustered, some nervously touching their hair. Clearly under immense stress. You guys called me the strict dean like a demon earlier, didn't you? Future elite doctors can't even remember their superior's name. You're quite naive. Just kids.
Are you serious?
They couldn't take their eyes off the badge.
Due to a shortage of nursing staff, she volunteered to help until new hires arrived.
Thanks to that, I had a chance to observe you closely. If I had been in my dean's attire, maybe I'd have overlooked you guys. You all seem to have decent exteriors. Now I'll get back to my work. It felt refreshing. As I returned to the hospital with a stretch, the sun began to set. Here, sorry for the wait. I reviewed the documents Mr. Barnes had asked for, signed them, and he looked greatly relieved.
I was really concerned for a moment.
Concerned about what?
About what happened earlier.
It seemed Jennifer and Jason overheard Mr. Barnes as they approached my desk with intrigued looks.
What happened earlier?
It's okay, it's okay. It's not a big deal.
Oh my.
Jason bumped his leg against the desk and spilled coffee on his clothes. Really? Why are you always like this? I couldn't help but laugh. If everyone were like him, they'd be endearing, and I just want to help them out. I was honestly surprised to find myself developing feelings of admiration for boys like him. I would have found that type of guy annoying in the past. He's unreliable, and not very manly. I guess my taste has. No, I can't think like that. He's a colleague, and more importantly, I'm sure an older woman like me isn't his type. Trying not to let on that she was slightly flustered, Catherine offered him a handkerchief. But he returned with such a pure and unclouded smile that she had to look away.
Oh, I guess I forgot to mention that you are helping out here. It must have been quite a surprise for them to find out you're the Dean of Medicine all of a sudden, right?
Yes, they seem quite shaken. They're probably reevaluating everything now, realizing the person they underestimated is actually someone they shouldn't mess with.
Speaking of which, we have interviews coming up soon. Everything seems fine on paper, so I'd like to hire them, and then I'll send Catherine back to you. Unless, of course, she wants to stay here permanently.
Jennifer looked at Jason and me with a mischievous grin on her face.
That would be problematic. It gets quite challenging without the Dean of Medicine. Please return her as soon as possible.
He sorted out some papers, shook hands, and left the room.
Did you want to be transferred from the medical department over to here, Catherine?
His eyes sparkled like an excited puppy. His joy was palpable. For someone with little romantic experience like me, his gaze was almost dangerously intoxicating. It wouldn't be surprising if I mistakenly thought he had feelings for me. He radiated pure innocence.
Well, it's up to her.
What? Don't be ridiculous. I'm the Dean of Medicine, remember. If I moved here, I'd be working under you, and I don't want that. I tried to play it cool.
Well, if you really want, I could give you a fancy title or something.
Jennifer replied, clearly enjoying herself. Her excitement for her best friend's budding romance was contagious. Especially since the man in question is her junior. It was an amusing and intriguing love story. She couldn't help but be a nosy Parker, and she was keen to make this relationship work. Anyway, please hire someone new soon. I want to get back to my usual self as soon as possible.
All right, got it.
It was a peaceful evening. The company of the three was very comfortable. As we were wrapping up our tasks, a knock sounded on the door. Jason, do you have a moment? When Jennifer asked, Jason nodded and approached the door. Who could it be? Oh my. Startled, he retreated quickly back to us after seeing who was at the door.
It's not good. It's the interns. They look really angry. They're here for revenge.
He seemed panicked, trembling behind me. Revenge. That sounds a bit dramatic. I'll go check it out. If something happens, contact the medical department immediately. I hesitantly opened the door and saw 4 serious-looking individuals. What do you want?
Dean? Good evening, ma'am. Please take this.
They presented me with some high-end confections. Wow, that's the limited edition one. Jason exclaimed, visibly excited.
Starting tomorrow, we'll rededicate ourselves to our training. Goodbye.
Leaving their message, they quickly departed. Hey, no running in the hospital, she shouted. Sorry, a regretful voice echoed back.
A turn of events.
Who knows? I'm not sure. Finally, the long day was ending. I passed the luxurious suites to Jason and headed to the changing room.
I'm nearly 60 years old and work in a beautiful white office that is unbecoming. This is a subsidiary of a major food conglomerate, handling ingredient procurement and logistics. I quit my job in my 40s to take care of my parents, but after my parents passed away, I started working here as a contractor through an acquaintance. Being under a major corporation may have its glamour, but what's really expected from a contract worker is just organizing documents, reconciling ledgers, and furthermore, managing office supplies and such miscellaneous tasks. It was exactly the right job for an old man like me. Then one day, a manager a bit younger than me called out to me.
Mr. Smith, do you have a moment?
Sir, I've told you before, there's no need to be so formal with your subordinates. What can I help you with?
Old habits die hard. Listen, next week, we have that meeting with the parent company. I'd like you to be there with me.
Me? Really? I just handled the scheduling and wasn't really familiar with the details. But sure enough, next week, a meeting with the parent company, led by the manager, was on the books. Judging by the vibes around the office, it seemed like a pretty important meeting. That's why I couldn't understand why they'd want a mere contract worker like me to attend. You sure they asked for me, manager? Maybe there's some confusion.
No, Mr. Smith. It was a request from the parent company. I checked and they specifically mentioned they wanted you there.
Even the manager looked puzzled, not knowing the exact reason.
Just come along, okay? I just need you to attend.
All right, if you say so. I only have office paperwork, so I'm completely free. I agreed, wondering why. On the day of the meeting, when I checked the attendees from our parent company in advance, lo and behold, the president's daughter, who is the team leader, was set to attend. Her name is Jessica Anderson. If I recall correctly, she's in her mid-30s. In the corporate circle, there were both whispers of her being incredibly skilled, being pegged as the next CEO, and rumors dismissing her as just riding on her dad's coattails. Either way, for a contract worker like me, she's on a totally different level. The fact that someone of my rank was invited to a meeting with such an important figure was, in and of itself, very unusual. The atmosphere in the conference room was tense. After a quick round of greetings, we all took our seats and got down to business.
Our project aims to further expand our company's presence in the Asian market.
Jessica began explaining. It seems this plan was a major project involving the entire corporate group, aimed at expanding our international reach.
So, we'd like your company to explore new sales channels. Here's a list of the necessary requirements, including the budget.
At that word, a subordinate from the parent company began distributing documents. The subsidiary team gave the documents a quick look, their expressions turning sour, and the manager hesitated before speaking up.
I'm sorry, but this seems a bit unreasonable.
The middle class in Asia is our target. We need to reduce unnecessary costs and make it as affordable as possible.
Jessica stated confidently. She then fixed her intimidating gaze on the manager.
As I mentioned at the beginning, this is a project we're all in on. betting the company's future. We need to push through, even if it means making sacrifices.
But there are concerns about quality. Consumers are more discerning these days, sensitive to issues like human rights and labor practices.
As the manager tried to explain, Jessica leaned over the table and threatened in a low voice.
You're our subsidiary, right? Just follow along without making a fuss. And don't forget, I'm the CEO's daughter. One word from my dad and you could be out of a job.
Hearing this, I couldn't help but chuckle out loud. My dry laughter sounded awkward in the tense meeting room. Wow, you really live up to the expectations of a future CEO. Your presence is so commanding. It's like something out of a mob movie. Everyone in the room turned to look at me, and sensing the focus, I offered a superficial apology. Oh, my apologies.
Who the hell are you?
The CEO's daughter, Jessica, looked at me with clear annoyance. Nah, I'm just a lowly contract worker. Please, go on and don't mind me.
This meeting is supposed to be top secret. Why is someone like you here?
Well, I'm not quite sure. I've heard there was a request from your side though. But, I continued. While we're on the subject, let me offer a piece of advice. If you force an unfair deal on a subsidiary just because they are part of the family, the IRS is gonna take notice. That could hurt the whole group, don't you think? Hearing this, her face turned bright red with rage.
What would a low-level guy like you know? Don't you dare belittle this job.
The next moment, my vision turned brown for a split second. Before I realized it, I was dripping with coffee from head to toe. Still trying to grasp what just happened, I blinked in surprise and said, "Phew, I'm glad it was iced coffee." I amusingly thought to myself,
Smith, you okay? Someone get a towel.
The manager quickly offered his handkerchief, while others rushed off to get towels. Jessica still seemed furious, her eyes fixed on me. You sure got me good. I chuckled, and as I did, the conference room door opened, and a new figure entered.
Mr. Smith, what's the meaning of?
Mr. Johnson, it's been a while. Despite my jovial greeting, Mr. Johnson from the parent company paled instantly.
Are you hurt, sir? Who dared to be so disrespectful?
Well, it seems like you've got a spirited team here. Quite commendable. As I glanced at Jessica, she looked puzzled. Mr. Johnson then began to explain to Jessica.
Jessica, this is Mr. Smith, a wealthy investor. He's been investing significant sums in our company.
What?
Excluding financial institutions. He's probably one of our top 3 shareholders.
You're kidding.
Jessica went pale and quickly apologized to me.
I deeply apologize for my behavior. Truly sorry.
Seeing her dramatic shift in demeanor, I couldn't help but chuckle. But it wasn't just her. Everyone in the room, save for Mr. Johnson, looked shocked. It wasn't surprising. After all, I had been working incognito. Only Mr. Johnson, who invited me here, and a friend who recommended it, knew of my true status. Please, don't worry about it. It's not like I earned it myself. I just shrugged. Actually, I lost my parents in my 40s, and I inherited all the wealth from my dad, who was a well-known wealthy man. With that, I too gained substantial wealth to be called a wealthy man. However, I couldn't change my nature of being dedicated to my job. Even with sudden riches, living lavishly wasn't my thing. So I decided to go undercover as a new employee at one of the companies in which I had invested to understand the actual operations from a worker's perspective. In fact, out of all the companies I've infiltrated, I had to back out from several after witnessing some shady dealings. However, when it comes to this food group, there was another story altogether. Ms. Jessica, I've heard about you from your dad. He's quite concerned about your reputation within the company. Seeing the surprised look on her face, I continued to explain. I've known your dad since college, and he's asked me for many favors over the years. The reason I was invited here today is because he wanted me to gauge your potential as the next CEO, and I must say, you've shown great promise.
My dad did.
Her face turned pale. She had unknowingly spilled coffee on the very person who was assessing her. It's only natural she would be worried about the consequences. Seeing her like this, I tried to comfort her. From this document, I realized you've planned a serious strategy for this project. Surely, your intellect is fitting for the role of the next CEO. I'll relay this to CEO.
Thank you so much.
Seeing her relieved, I added, however, you still have a lot to learn as a person. Use this project as an opportunity to hone your leadership skills.
Yes, I will.
With a solemn face, she nodded in acknowledgement. The atmosphere in the room lightened, and the meeting resumed. Later, after successfully wrapping up our negotiations, Jessica quietly confided in me.
To be honest, this is the first time I've been assigned such a big interdepartmental project. I felt pressured to produce results, especially for my dad's sake. I didn't want to be looked down upon by our subsidiaries, which is why I was so rude earlier. I deeply apologize.
She seems to be a sincere and earnest woman at heart. Such pressure must be weighing heavily on Jessica, being slated as the next CEO. I gave her a warm smile. Don't worry, CEO told me that he wanted this project to succeed when he sent me over. I really believe you'll do a great job. Later, I went out for drinks, invited by Mr. Anderson, a college buddy of mine. Right after we toasted, I vented to him. That young lady sure has some spirit. Never thought she'd throw coffee at me.
Surprising, right? Don't you think she's quite something?
It seemed like he was amused by his daughter's antics. I just shrugged. It's nice that she's lively, but it's a bit too stimulating for us old folks. Plus, now that my real identity has been revealed, it's uncomfortable at work. How about letting me retire soon?
Come on, for old time's sake, help me out a bit longer. I could even have her report directly to you next time.
That's a tough joke. With that guy's authority as a CEO, he could manipulate just about anything. I shivered a bit. That project, though it had a rough start, seems to be going smoothly now. While subtly supporting Jessica, I'm still grinding away as a contract employee. With the way Mr. Anderson speaks, doesn't seem like I'll be relieved from this role anytime soon. My retirement is probably still a little way off.